With the night ending and dawn just on the horizon, Ash, Akari, and Volo decide to return to Jubilife Village. Upon their arrival, they find two people bickering in the streets, just outside the Galaxy Team headquarters. One is a man dressed in blue, while the other is a woman in pink and white. The two argue over something they refer to as Almighty Sinnoh, and whether or not it is a being of time or space. Hearing the mention of the name Sinnoh, Ash asks why they're arguing about the region as if it were a person or a Pokemon, to which Akari once again reminds him that no one has heard of a region named Sinnoh other than him. The only mention of Sinnoh that they know of is the name of the deities which the Diamond and Pearl clans respectively worship. Ash asks why two separate beings would share the same name, to which Akari has to explain that it's due to the Diamond and Pearl clan disagreeing on which being truly formed the world. The Diamond clan believes Almighty Sinnoh is a being of time, while the Pearl clan believes it is a being of space. The two clans had been at each other's throats for years due to their religious disagreement. For a long time, the two were at war, but have since settled down with their animosity. So long as the two do not cause any trouble for the other, then there is peace. Volo then points out how strange it is to see the leaders of both clans in the same place. The trio look back to the man and woman, who now have put their verbal fighting on hold, as the two walk towards the Galaxy Team headquarters, albeit in a way where it feels more like a race between the two. Confused, the trio enters shortly afterwards, noticing the clan leaders heading up the stairs to Commander Kamado's office. Brushing it aside briefly, Ash and Akari report to Captain Silene, who thanks them for the work they did for Mai. She had just received a letter from the Diamond clan not too long ago, thanks to her Abra. The clan was very grateful, but now it seemed a new issue had been brewing last night. The two Survey Corps members are curious about this, but as if to answer their question, they hear a loud roar of the words, "What would you have us do?" from Kamado's office upstairs. The argument continues to be heard from the third floor, with mentions of nobles and the name Kleavor, who was in a frenzy due to a lightning strike at its home the night before. The volume had died down by this point, so they could only hear bits and pieces put together of the conversation. Minutes later, Kamado's stern voice can be heard calling Silene's name. Responding almost immediately, Silene walks over to her Abra in the corner, and has it teleport her away. Seconds later, the Abra returns, making gestures that Ash is able to understand, as he and Akari being requested at Kamado's office. Ash thanks Abra, only for the Psychic type to disappear instantly. Akari groans slightly, making a statement of how Abra could have at least had the courtesy to teleport them too. Ash defends Abra though, stating how the Psychic type seems to be on the more timid side, so it probably doesn't trust them yet. It's probably only comfortable around Silene, something that Akari finds strange. She asks Ash how he's so easily able to understand Pokemon, to which Ash just shrugs, mentioning how it comes pretty easily now, with Pikachu by his side being the main thing. The trio then makes their way upstairs, finding Kamado and Silene waiting for their arrival. Upon entrance, Kamado makes note that he did not request the presence of anyone from the Ginkgo Guild, and tells Volo to leave. Before the Ginkgo Guild member says anything, Ash once again steps in, making the claim that Volo's a friend. If it wasn't for him, things would have gone south very fast with that Luxio pack. Kamado narrows his eyes at this, clearly not happy to see someone he still considers a stranger to be arguing with him. Akari then steps in, apologizing on behalf of Ash, saying how he still needs to get accustomed to the way things are done around here. She then asks Volo to leave for the time being, so as to not make Kamado any angrier. Volo obliges, though he seems strangely disappointed. Once he's out of the room, Kamado clears his throat, before thanking Akari, as at least she understands how they can't have anyone listening in on a matter as pertinent as this one. Akari bows in respect, before Kamado formally introduces the two leaders in the room. The man is addressed as Adaman, leader of the Diamond Clan, while the woman is Irida of the Pearl Clan. Both had come to request their services for a more recent debacle. Irida then takes over the explanation from here. She explains how last night the warden of her clan's great noble lord, Kleavor, had been witnessed to a most terrifying sight. When he had gone to deliver some food to the lord, he saw lightning streak across the sky and strike the great noble. He rushed to Kleavor's side, only for him to begin glowing with the terrifying gold energy. He then acted violently, attacking Warden Leon out of nowhere. He was able to escape unscathed, but Kleavor was now beginning to run amok, and had been reported to be cutting down trees at random, and attacking innocent people and Pokemon without reason. Adaman then cuts in, mentioning how Irida believed his clan to be at fault originally, though the accusation was baseless. Still, no one was sure whether or not something like this could happen again to anyone else. Unfortunately, due to the tension between clans, the Diamond Clan could not do anything to assist. With the Pearl Clan also at a loss as to what should be done, they figured they only had one other option. Seeing as the Galaxy team had assisted Mai with the situation around Deer Track Heights, it felt best to seek their help for this as well. So with Ash and Akari being the ones who helped Mai, they were now being asked to help the Pearl Clan, and hopefully quell the frenzied Kleavor. While the mission would be dangerous, that should not come as a surprise to them, as Pokemon are terrifying creatures. Akari does state how she's unsure of how they could handle something as powerful as Lord Kleavor, but Ash still states that he'll do his best. If it's a battle that Kleavor is looking for, then he and Pikachu will be happy to take it on. This is where Irida stops him, stating that she wouldn't underestimate the mighty Lord of the Woods. After all, it had descended from the same Kleavor, who is said to have fought Almighty Sinnoh alongside the hero of ancient Hisui, and his other 9 companions. Much to the surprise of all except Akari, Ash is actually more interested in meeting Kleavor after hearing this. Shocked, Irida tells him that he'll need to go to Graintree Arena, located within the Heartwood. Warden Leon will help him there. Ash nods before dashing away, leaving Akari behind. She sighs before telling them that they likely just excited Ash, with the promise of a strong Pokemon that he could meet. With their new task at hand, Ash and Akari get ready to head off to the Obsidian Fieldlands. Once again, Volo joins them, stating how he knows the Obsidian Fieldlands better than either of them, and they may need his wares. Plus, how could he possibly miss out on seeing the frenzied Kleavor? Akari is a little skeptical about letting him join, especially with how dangerous the mission will be. But so long as he stays out of harm's way or can handle himself, she'll be fine with him joining once again. Before they leave, they decide to visit Professor Laventon, who gets ready to go on a trip of his own, as due to the efforts of the trio, he's been invited to set up camp in Deer Track Heights for the Galaxy team. Akari explains the events of their time in Deer Track Heights to Laventon. Much to her surprise, Laventon is actually quite thrilled by the story. She questions it, but Laventon states that this is what he had been waiting for. Cyndaquil was always a shy and timid Pokemon, but if it was taking a shine to her, then that could bring about completely new experiences, which they would never have been able to see from Cyndaquil otherwise. Not only that, but maybe Cyndaquil could help Akari learn more about herself as well. With that being said, Laventon gifts Akari Cyndaquil's Pokeball, entrusting her with the safety of the Fire Mouse. Akari makes the promise that she will not fail the professor before she leaves with Ash and Volo on the road to the Heartwood. The trek is long and arduous, but there is some good that comes from the trip. The trip allows them to see many different Pokemon, which Akari takes the time to study for Professor Laventon, from a distance, of course. The trek also allows for Ash to train Oshawott, who becomes very serious about increasing in strength as much as possible. Akari finds this fascinating, as Ash's Oshawott acts like a warrior at all times. He takes care of his Scout Shop by sharpening it with stones it finds along riversides. He studies his opponents with great detail. He stays out of his Pokeball for a lot of the trek, walking alongside Ash. Even when Ash isn't having Oshawott duel with Pikachu, Akari had found Oshawott training his slashing techniques on his own, clearly wanting to improve beyond the use of Aerial Ace. Eventually, they get to a dam at a riverway, guarded by an alpha Bibarel. With it being unlikely that they'd be able to get by without a fight, Ash decides this is the perfect opportunity to test Oshawott's skills. So, he challenges the alpha to a battle, something it is strangely more than happy to accept. The Bibarel's moves are very sluggish while on land, and yet it is able to easily take any attack Oshawott tries. Aqua Jet does very little, as Bibarel's fur seems to fully repel water, allowing for the alpha to counterattack with Crunch. Bibarel also has other powerful moves, such as Iron Tail and Water Pulse. Ash tries to command Oshawott, but the Bibarel is able to handle anything Oshawott tries to throw at it, which frustrates the otter. Eventually, Oshawott stops listening to Ash's commands, as none of them seem to be working. Oshawott tries to attack more swiftly, by utilizing Aerial Ace to slash quickly against the Bibarel. These attacks do more damage, but Oshawott doesn't notice that Bibarel is being pushed closer and closer to the water. Oshawott strikes with a tackle that sends Bibarel into the watery depths, something it sees as a victory, despite it not being that simple. Oshawott attempts to show off victory by raising its Scout Shop to the air, but that's when Bibarel strikes, leaping from the water with speed it hadn't shown off before firing off a move it had been keeping hidden until now. Charge Beam. The electricity spews from Bibarel, striking Oshawott with enough force to send it into a nearby rock. Oshawott slumps down, losing its Scout Shop in the process. Bibarel attempts to attack again, but this is when Ash steps in. Pikachu leaps in front, grounding its tail in order to take the electricity and disperse it into the earth itself. Ash then gets between his Pokemon and Bibarel. Bibarel clearly wants to continue the fight, but Ash reaches out to it. With a hand now on Bibarel, Ash states that Bibarel had won. They will not disturb it anymore. All they request is to pass through this area in order to make it to the Heartwood. Bibarel at first seems to be against this, only for Ash to state that if it really wants to keep fighting, then Pikachu will be more than happy to take it on. Pikachu's cheeks spark with electricity, showing how the electric mouse is ready for a challenge. Bibarel looks at Pikachu, before surprisingly choosing to step away from Ash, making a command that Ash explains to the others means Bibarel will let them pass through, but only if they're quick about it. So, Ash picks up Oshawott, and makes sure to grab Oshawott's Skull Chop before the trio head off from the area. As the sun lowers from the sky, the trio enter a nearby woodlands. Volo states that they shouldn't be too far from the Heartwood now, but with it starting to become dark, the group decides to take a rest, setting up camp for the night. Volo prepares a meal, with Ash being the one to offer to forage for berries they could add to the mix. Before Ash and Pikachu head out, Ash sets Oshawott up against a tree, making sure the little otter is comfortable. He has Akari watch over him, telling him to give back the Scout Chop when Oshawott wakes up, as well as explaining that Ash will help Oshawott train when he gets back. Moments after Ash is left to forage for berries and herbs, Oshawott wakes up. He looks around, only to find that Ash was nowhere in sight, and his trusty Scout Chop was gone. This infuriated the little otter, only increasing that rage when it realized it had lost to a barrel. When Akari finally notices that Oshawott is awake, it's already too late. The anger Oshawott has is being directed towards Ash, resulting in it attempting to leave before Akari can say anything. Akari and Cyndaquil both try to stop Oshawott, but a single glare from it makes the two stop completely. Seeing how fear made the only one standing in his way stand down, Oshawott leaves the group. Volo states that Oshawott must have changed his mind about believing Ash could have made him stronger, which immediately prompts Akari to ask why he didn't do anything to stop Oshawott from leaving. Volo shrugs, explaining how this is not his battle, and if anyone should be trying to keep Oshawott from leaving, it should be Ash himself. Besides, he had to focus on the cooking and make sure nothing burned. Begrudgingly, Akari accepts this reasoning. Finally, Ash returns, dropping all the things he had collected for their meal beside Volo in the fire he had made. He asks where Oshawott is, but the look on Akari's face is only enough for him to get before realizing what had happened. The rising moon shines over the still river waters. Peace had returned to Bibarel's territory, giving it the opportunity to take a rest after all the excitement of the day. Just as it stretches out against a nearby rock, it hears the angry call of something. Annoyed that its rest is being disturbed, Bibarel gets up, only to find the same Oshawott from before to be standing there. The Sea Otter Pokemon raises his arm, as if his Scout Chop were still there with him, before aggressively challenging Bibarel to yet another duel. This time, however, Bibarel does not accept, seeing as how Oshawott already lost to it hours earlier. Oshawott keeps trying to provoke the beaver, but the Alpha does not really care. That is, until Oshawott fires a water pulse, which blasts through the rock the Alpha was sleeping on. Now Oshawott was going to get what he wanted, though the Alpha made it clear that Oshawott was going to regret it. By the time Ash and Co. had made it to the riverside, Oshawott has already been damaged immensely by the Alpha Bibarel. He keeps fighting regardless of all the damage, but it is clear to all that Oshawott will not win this fight. At least, he won't win it alone. As Bibarel begins to fire a charge beam, Ash calls out to Oshawott, running in front and taking the attack for the water type. With the electricity coursing through Ash, he ends up falling to one knee, before turning to look at Oshawott. He states how he isn't surprised that Oshawott wanted a rematch with Bibarel. It was clear to him early on that Oshawott was a Pokemon who hated to lose. Still, he wanted to train with Oshawott before trying to face an opponent like Bibarel again. Though, now they didn't have a choice. But at least they could do this together. Oshawott didn't have to face Bibarel alone. So with Ash pulling out the Scout Chop, which he had gotten back from Akari, he asks if Oshawott will fight by his side again. Oshawott hesitates, but then agrees, deciding to listen to Ash once again. And so, the battle begins. With Ash and the Skull Chop back with Oshawott, and Oshawott trusting Ash, the two begin to do a lot better than originally. Ash is able to pull off some more unpredictable strategies, such as using Aqua Jet to get up close before switching to Aerial Ace for the blow. Aqua Jet and Water Pulse are used as counter shields at points, making it far more difficult for Barrel to land an attack. When Barrel tried to use his much faster swimming to its advantage, Ash and Oshawott rush in and strike with Tackle in order to keep it away. With the two actually working in sync with each other, eventually, Barrel is defeated. Ash congratulates Oshawott on the victory, but Oshawott doesn't seem to care, instead choosing to begin polishing his Skull Chop as usual. With everything said and done, the group returns to their camp, eating and resting until the morning comes. Once the sun peaks over the horizon, Ash, Akari, and Volo head to the center of the forest, known as Grand Tree Arena. It's there that they meet Lian, who has a hat that seems awfully familiar to Ash, as well as his partner Gumi. Akari explains how they're here to help with Kleavor's frenzied state, but Lian says that that is no longer necessary. He has come to the conclusion that Kleavor's state is likely due to Almighty Sinnoh's power. He can't be sure of it, but regardless, the lightning that has left the Lord imbued with awesome power. Regardless, it is far too dangerous for them to try and see the Lord right now. Ash tells Lian that he isn't scared of Kleavor, but Lian says how that does not matter. As scared or not, he refuses to let Ash face Kleavor. If he doesn't leave, then he and Gumi will have to force Ash and the others to leave. Akari mentions how giving Ash the option to battle isn't the best idea. Before Lian can ask why that is, Ash accepts the challenge. It is not much of a true challenge for Ash, as when Lian has Gumi face Oshawott, it only takes a few hits from Oshawott's Aqua Jet and Aerial Ace combo to take Gumi down. Lian is unable to fathom how Ash is so powerful. It doesn't make any sense for him to how someone could have such a strong Pokemon as a partner. That's when Akari mentions that Oshawott isn't even Ash's strongest Pokemon partner. The Pikachu on Ash's shoulder is far stronger, and has been with Ash for a lot longer, supposedly. This shocks Lian, as he considers that maybe Ash could combat the mighty Lord's frenzy. Though, he doubts simply defeating Kleavor would solve things, as besting Kleavor in combat may not result in the frenzy ending. Akari asks if there is anything else that they could do to potentially calm down Kleavor instead, to which Lian does mention how normally if the Lord of the Woods was displeased, he would give him his favorite food as an offering. However, he can't even get close enough to Kleavor to give the offering to him. If only there were a way to get the food to Lord Kleavor from a distance. That might be able to solve it. Suddenly, Akari has an idea. She asks if there would be a way they could throw the food at Kleavor. Lian thinks about it for a moment. He notes that it would take a great thrower, but if they grinded up some of the food and placed it inside something, it could possibly work. The scent could even help calm down Lord Kleavor as well. It could be like a balm of some kind. Volo then stated that there's a bit of a problem. They don't have anything they could use. Certainly not in his wares, at least. However, Lian says they do, as Kleavor never touched the offering from a few days ago, so he'd kept a hold of it. They can use all of what's left over to create these balms. Ash says that's a great idea, and even thanks Akari for coming up with it. With that, they begin getting to work. As Akari, Lian, and Ash work together to create the balms, Volo watches on. what was he supposed to do now? If they were successful in calming Kleavor, they could potentially unravel his plans. No, that couldn't be it. How would they be able to connect the lightning to the Renegade? Besides, if anything happens similarly to Kleavor, then he'd have plenty of time to reach Almighty Sinnoh on his own. So long as his partner was able to hold up its end of the deal, he'd be able to enact his plan. Not to mention, Lord Kleavor was the strongest Pokemon in the Obsidian Fieldlands by a large margin. Not even the Galaxy Team's security corps could even get near it. Maybe he was giving Ash too much credit. Kleavor would likely rip him to shreds before he could even land a balm against him. As Volo is off in his own little world of thought, he gets asked what he's thinking about. Of course, he obliged to give the answer that he was thinking about how Kleavor would likely rip him to shreds before he could even throw a balm, only to realize he had just said that to Ash himself. Much to Volo's surprise, Ash actually thinks that's a good point, meaning they'll need to work around that. He thanks Volo before heading back over to Akari and Lian. Volo's jaw drops when he realizes he just helped Ash accidentally. Ash explains to the others that the only one of them dealing with Kleavor might be a bad idea. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be smart of him to battle and try to throw bombs either, as he needs to be able to focus on one or the other. Lian states that it would be better for Ash to focus on battling, as even though he likely can't knock out Kleavor, he could at the very least draw his attention. But then who would throw the bombs? Ash knows exactly who it should be. He takes a rock and hands it over to Akari, asking her to throw it as hard as she can. Confused, Akari does just that, only for it to be thrown a little too hard and smack the grand tree in the center. There's a faraway roar, which Lian states must be Lord Kleavor. They probably don't have much time left before he returns. With Akari having a strong arm, Ash tells her that the plan will be for her to hit Kleavor, while he distracts it. This plan makes Akari nervous, but Ash promises that he won't let Kleavor get too close to her. While still uncertain whether she really wants to be involved in this or not, she decides to go along with the plan. So, the two enter Grand Tree Arena together. Ash slowly approaches the tree in the center, only to hear another, much louder roar. Leaping out towards Ash is a large bug Pokemon giving off a golden glow. It raises both arms, showing off the axe blades on its ends. It swings downwards as it jumps towards Ash. Both Akari and Lian gasp. But Ash isn't worried. In the blink of an eye, Ash leaps backwards while Pikachu and Oshawott spring forth with Iron Tail and Aerial Ace. The two moves clash with the dual axes of Kleavor, but the Noble pulls through. As Pikachu and Oshawott work together to combat the Noble, Ash looks over and notices Akari still standing by. He calls out to her while Kleavor is distracted, telling her that now's her chance. This seems to snap her back to reality, as she begins to throw the bombs as hard as she can. Unfortunately, while the power behind her throws is there, she isn't able to land a hit against Kleavor. Some hit the ground, some hit the large tree nearby. One bomb even hits Pikachu, causing the pleasant aroma to make Pikachu stop in his tracks, as he takes in the soothing scent. This leaves Oshawott needing to pick Pikachu's slack up. But with Oshawott's lack of power compared to Pikachu, he is overwhelmed by a fury of air-slash attacks from the noble Kleavor. With both Pokemon down for the time being, Kleavor focuses on Ash instead, dashing at Ash with both axes, forcing the 10-year-old to have to leap out of the way. Kleavor strikes the rocky terrain around the arena, causing it to become dazed. This gives Akari the opportunity she was looking for, throwing the bombs as hard as she can. Akari bombards the noble with the aroma of the bombs. But when the noble Kleavor recovers, it locks eyes onto Akari. The girl gulps, as Kleavor prepares to attack her instead. Just before it dashes towards her, however, Pikachu gets back into the battle, ensnaring the noble with an Electro web. It doesn't take long for Kleavor to break free, but in that short amount of time, Akari is able to get to a safer distance and throw a couple more bombs the noble's way. Once Kleavor is free, Pikachu and Oshawott both strike the bug with Quick Attack and Aqua Jet respectively. Ash then chooses to have his two Pokemon use their speed to dash around Kleavor in circles. Both the mouse and the otter race around the noble, making it difficult for him to focus on either one specifically. Meanwhile, Akari continues to throw bomb after bomb. After the 5th or 6th one, Akari notices the light around Kleavor flicker slightly. The bombs were working! However, when Kleavor stops flickering, he spins, drawing up a whirlwind that forces Pikachu and Oshawott away. Pikachu is able to recover just barely and counter with Thunderbolt, but Oshawott crashes to the ground and doesn't give up. Akari and Pikachu continue, with Akari slowly becoming more able to target Kleavor while it's in the middle of the battle. Kleavor tries to change focus to Akari with each bomb that lands on the Lord, but Pikachu is able to take that focus away, instead resulting in the noble Lord needing to go back and forth between which one to target. Eventually, Kleavor chooses to target Pikachu specifically, dashing in and striking with both axe arms. Pikachu is sent flying back, but is luckily caught by Ash. Pikachu is able to keep fighting, but from the looks of it, they'll need to do more to distract Kleavor from Akari. So Ash and Pikachu start making as much noise as possible. Once Kleavor is focused on Ash, he begins running around, doing his best to keep away from Kleavor. Ash does all he can to keep Kleavor away from Akari, while Pikachu battles in an attempt to distract. But he looks over, noticing Oshawott is still on the ground. He can't just leave him there. So while Pikachu combats the stone axes with Iron Tail, Ash rushes over to Oshawott's side, scooping the otter up into his arms. He apologizes for not getting to Oshawott's side sooner, but it'll be alright now. As soon as he says that, Pikachu is blown back with an X-Scissor from Kleavor. The noble then locks his eyes onto Ash and Oshawott. Oshawott groans, trying to get back into the fight, but Ash says it'll be okay. Oshawott is hurt, and he's not going to make Oshawott battle in a bad condition. Kleavor dashes towards Ash, and the 10-year-old chooses to shift his body, just enough to make sure Oshawott won't be harmed by the attack. Kleavor's left axe goes for a swing, one that would strike Ash on the neck, a blow that is sure to be fatal. Just as Kleavor swings, however, Oshawott uses Aqua Jet, forcing against Ash and making him fall to the ground. Then Oshawott goes on the attack with Aerial Ace. The Scalp Chop glides against the first axe, making contact against the blade. But Oshawott isn't intending to stop Kleavor's attack. Instead, Oshawott reels back a fist, getting ready to strike with it as well. Suddenly, Oshawott begins to glow. Akari manages to get around the tree, so she's a good distance behind Kleavor. Just as she's about to throw a ball, she witnesses Kleavor stumble back, having just received a powerful blow below the jaw. Kleavor staggers back, allowing Akari to see that Oshawott is no longer Oshawott. Instead, he is taller, with a primarily light blue body. It has small black ears and a pointed crest at the back of its head. Its nose was red in color, with long tilted whiskers forming a V shape. In both of its black paws, the creature wielded a Scalp Chop, just like the one Oshawott would wield, both glowing with the blades of Aerial Ace. Akari has no idea what this Pokemon is, but Ash does. This is the evolved form of Oshawott. Duwat. Kleavor recovers, going for an overhead attack, but Duwat is quickly able to move and block with Aerial Ace on both Scale Chops. Then, with more strength than Kleavor was expecting, Duwat forces back the axe. Kleavor is about to attack again, but Duwat is already on the offensive. Over and over, Duwat attacks with a relentless assault of dual-wielded Aerial Ace attacks. Suddenly, both blades coming from the Scale Chops change to a light green, before Duwat strikes with an X-shaped slash against Kleavor. Duwat is about to go for another attack, but has to quickly defend, as Kleavor strikes with both axe arms. Duwat is then put on the defensive, having to dodge around multiple swings from Lord Kleavor. The two clash over and over again, before Duwat goes for one final Aerial Ace. Unfortunately, the attack doesn't land, as Lord Kleavor uses an axe to push the attack to his side. Both go for one last attack, Aerial Ace versus Stone Edge. And at that very moment, Akari throws a ball. Both attacks collide, and the two stop. The golden aura around the noble Kleavor swells, before dispersing in twinkles of light. As Duwat collapses, Kleavor returns to normal. Ash gets back up, but before he can get to Duwat's side, Kleavor catches the otter. They had done it. Ash looks over to Akari, and notices how she's still in a post-throwing stance. He mouths the words, "Thank you," to her. As she smiles in return, Warden Leon rushes to Kleavor's side. He desperately questions Kleavor over his condition, something that the Lord takes well, having been able to calm down now. Leon then quickly changes to thanking both Ash and Akari for pulling this off, saying that he's not sure how the Pearl Clan could ever repay them. Ash and Akari brush this off, though, before deciding it would be best to head back now and get Duwat some medical attention. As they leave the arena, Volo rejoins them. He apologizes, stating that he wasn't sure whether him jumping in would have helped at all. Ash understands this, but while Akari didn't really want him around, she's strangely skeptical of him. After all, given the Pokemon she had seen Volo use, after what she had been through, she's certain he definitely would have been strong enough to hold his own. Though she chalks this up to Volo being scared. Facing Kleavor would be nothing like facing the pack of Luxio, or even the Alpha Luxray. Typical wild Pokemon she could see Volo being used to. But the noble Kleavor was far beyond them, or at least what they would expect. She decides to not question Volo on it, as it also wasn't his mission. He was a merchant by trade, so she could not be upset with him over him not helping with a job that was not his. Eventually, the trio make it back to Deer Track Heights, where they reunite with Professor Laventon and the Security Corps. They had just finished setting up a camp, which the professor states that can be used by anyone in the Galaxy team. With them also about to head back to Jubilife Village as well, the group decides to walk together. That way the Security Corps could finally and potentially handle any threat. They arrive at night, and after getting Duwat medical attention, Ash and Akari choose to head straight to bed. In the morning, the two are able to make the report to Captain Silene. Silene congratulates the two on not dying, and is assured that the Pearl Clan is very grateful for their service. Hopefully, a situation like this would not happen again. She also states that given how the two have proven themselves, she and Commander Komodo have decided to allow them clearance to go on an expedition to another part of the region of Hisui, the portion of the region in which the Diamond Clan has settled in, the Crimson Mirelands. She is also tasking them with testing some new Pokeballs that the local craftsman, Anvin, had come up with. And that's where we'll be leaving things for right now. So what do you guys think? Do you like how the introduction of both Adamant and Nirida was handled? How would you feel about the way the events with Kleavor went? Were you expecting Duwat to evolve during that battle? Or was Oshawott evolving expected since the time he joined? What do you think will happen in the Crimson Mirelands? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye!